Hey, Cloudcast listeners. Before we get to the show, we want to talk to you about today's sponsor, Datadog. You already know that Datadog is a real-time monitoring platform that unifies metrics, logs, and distributed request traces from your cloud containers and orchestration software. But did you know that Datadog is great for your Kubernetes environment as well? Datadog's new cluster agent streamlines data collection from large container clusters and allows you to auto-scale Kubernetes workloads based on any metric you're already collecting with Datadog. To start monitoring your Kubernetes clusters, sign up today by going to datadog.com/cloudcast. Sign up for a free 14-day trial. Try out Datadog with your Kubernetes clusters and get a free t-shirt. So if you want to get better performance, better visibility out of your Kubernetes environment, go to datadog.com/cloudcast and try out a free 14-day trial and get your free Datadog t-shirt. And now, on to the show.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hope everybody's having a good new year. And, we have done a couple of shows so far this year where we've really, like we said early on, we want to look at 2019, what's going on in different technology sectors. We've had a chance to cover DevOps. We've had a chance to cover cloud native applications. And today we wanted to shift gears a little bit and cover a little more around IT operations, around infrastructure, around what's going on in the data centers and so forth. So we thought, what better person to go out and talk to and go kind of pick their brain than Mr. Ethan Banks, who is co-founder of all of the Packet Pusher podcasts, which a lot of you probably already listen to and should know, but if you don't, definitely go listen to it. But Ethan, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brian. You said that, what better person? I mean, I can think of a lot of people, but I appreciate that vote of confidence nonetheless.
Well, I know Aaron and I both have listened to a lot of your shows for a long time. I was a longtime Cisco person, so I got to know the Packet Pushers through the networking side of all the shows that you guys put together. And then we've gotten to know Chris Wall, who's your co-host on the Datanauts podcast. So we've listened to you guys for a long time. We love the fact that you cover, I think we love the fact that you guys do two things. Number one, you cover a lot of diverse topics, everything from, infrastructure and networking and security and data center planning and hybrid cloud. But you guys don't pull any punches. I mean, you're all ex-practitioners, and you don't put up a lot of BS. So I think if people are in that domain, they're going to get a ton of really good information from you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate that you recognize that, because that is one of our goals, to shoot a lot of holes in the hype cycle and keep it as real and practicable, actionable as possible.
Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't listen to kind of the Packet Pushers network, if you will, give us a little bit of your background and then just kind of give us a sense of how broad Packet Pushers has become these days.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm a ex-practitioner, is a good way to put it. I've been around long enough to go from general purpose IT engineer back in the days of Novell and Microsoft, when that's what being a network engineer meant. It meant that you worked on NetWare and Windows NT platforms. So general purpose from there to the world of being very siloed as a network and security focused engineer, dealing with a lot of IP infrastructure and firewalls and so on. And then back as now the world is beginning to shift back into general purpose practitioner again. I like to think of my specialty. The thing I love the most is building and securing the roads out there that get everybody connected. And then I've worked a lot across a whole lot of different verticals, government and higher ed and financial services, e-learning, medical for a while. And so on. And Packet Pushers grew from that experience. Myself and the various hosts that we have on Packet Pushers, including my co-founder, Greg Farrow, we all were building data centers and working as typically as technical leads. And we took our experiences in our day-to-day work and turned it into podcast content where we could talk about what we did, because there really wasn't anybody back in 2010 that was doing that. And long story short, it took off. It's become popular. A lot of engineers have enjoyed becoming a part of our community and listening to our various shows. We went from one show in 2010 to we have 8 different channels now, and we're looking forward to adding more. We've got a 9th one on the horizon that we expect to be launching this year, focused on cloud. And yeah, it's Packet Pushers has become a voice in the community, bringing together practitioners and vendors out in the valley and folks in between.
Yeah. I want to, like I said, what I wanted to kind of focus the show on was ITOps, infrastructure types of things. I feel like over the last couple of years, the conversation, the kind of buzz around ITOps and infrastructure kind of falls into software-defined. Software-defined a lot of stuff, which covers software-defined networking and storage, a little bit of HCI, hyper-converged infrastructure. Hybrid cloud seems to be a lot of the conversation of like, are things going to move out of the data center, or will it be some mix of the both? And then obviously a little more practical around a lot of things being automated. So whether, pick your favorite sort of automation tool, whether it's, Chris's favorite in PowerShell or things like Ansible or Puppet or others. I mean, is that kind of the state, of the big things that are taking up, IT ops times? Are those real? Do you guys feel like those are real things? Do you feel like they're too much hype? Where do you sort of, in terms of what are the big pillars of things that you're kind of focused on versus the things that you feel like are sort of BS?
That is such a loaded question. Part of the reason it's loaded is it really depends on who you are as a company, as a business, as an organization, and as an IT practitioner, what problems are and what you're trying to solve. So there is a lot of individual context here that'll provide nuance for the answer depending on your perspective. But so here's some things that I do think are indeed real, kind of no matter who you are. One is simplified operations. IT is complex and increasingly more so. The more we can simplify those operations, the better. That may manifest itself, for example, as HCI, where a lot of the complexity is masked for you by a unified interface. I think that's part of the reason those sorts of solutions are selling well. Another thing that's real here that just about everybody needs are predictable results. So no matter how complex the infrastructure is that's being stood up, you need it to work predictably every time. That is impacting process. That is driving automation to a great degree. If you leave it up to the people to be clicking and typing and kind of winging it as they go from memory, you're going to get inconsistent results. If you can automate as much of that provisioning process, I'm talking about provisioning since we're talking about infrastructure focus and infrastructure lifecycle management, I'll broaden the context of that. If you can automate that, you get more predictable results, which means more predictable results for the business. So that matters. And maybe we could summarize that by saying we got to get the infrastructure out of the way. The business for a long time has complained about how long it takes to bring any sort of infrastructure online so that an app can get deployed and get moving and bring in a measurable change for the business. And IT projects seem to run into the many weeks and months and sometimes years, depending on their scale. So as quickly as we can move along to get the infrastructure out of the way, that's a real need for sure. So we want to stand up infrastructure quickly. We need to be able to scale that infrastructure quickly. Once we've exceeded the capacity that we've got, we need to be able to grow without it being a dramatic event. And again, that point about automation, all that automation is helping us with, the way I see it, the chief thing that automation is helping us with is bringing that consistent, speedy result. Now, you want to talk about hype. Oh, man, this is such a loaded question. And you work for a vendor, last I knew, Brian, so don't take any of this personally. Sure. But cost savings is often preached by vendors as you buy this, you're going to save money. Really? Sometimes that's true, but a lot of times that is just total hype. Managing your costs is a very difficult thing. Public cloud is a great example of this. Move to cloud and you're going to save money because you're not burning electricity and you're not managing a facility and you can cut back on staff and all that. We've blown that up. I think everybody knows that ROI is not a measurable thing, and some people have even pulled back out of the cloud because cost management is difficult. So cost savings has been hype. I believe. And now I'm going to pick back on one of the things I said was a real thing and go back to simplified operations. Okay, so the glory of hyper-converged, let's say, is that simplified interface, unified interface, and it's great until it breaks. And then that's not so great anymore. And Brian, you mentioned hybrid cloud earlier. Man, there is nothing simple about hybrid cloud. If what we mean by hybrid cloud is you've got an on-premises cloud and a public cloud that you are unifying to work together as a single, at least conceptually, a single platform upon which you deploy workloads. And there's nothing simple about that either. And so I think, that the notion that everything is being simpler and easier to work with as you use these new tools is nothing could be further from the truth. Man, there's more gears and levers under there than you can believe. And again, it's all great until it breaks.
Yep.
Another point about hype then. Not every shop needs this. Oh man, all of hybrid cloud and all the rest of the buzzwords that we can fill in, whether that's automation, whether that's site reliability engineering, whether that's anyway, a lot of these buzzwords that we get all excited talking about on podcasts and writing about. Goes back to some of my opening comments. This really depends heavily on who you are as an organization and what you're trying to accomplish. So, the salesperson can walk in, you can read an article, you can hear a podcast talking about the new shiny thing, and it really is hype. People are excited about it because reason, but that reason may not apply to you. So again, big bit of hype there. I think it's finally starting to die up. Digital transformation. I mean, I hope we're over that bit of hype. And here's my idea. There is a core of truth in the notion of digital transformation, right? The big idea is using your data in such a way that you can advance your business by forming deep business insights based on all that information you might have about your customers or your transactions or how people consume your products, et cetera. But some people say digitally transform or you're going to be left behind. And it's spoken of as like this gospel truth, but I just don't think that's the case necessarily, going back to who you are and what you're trying to get done.
Yep. No, I think those are all good in terms of, kind of highlighting the realness. And again, I think there is a distinct shift that we're seeing for people that are saying, look, while there will always be the engineers and the nerds and the technologists that love the bells and whistles, that love the knobs, simplicity is becoming a bigger thing. It's the just sort of make it work. I don't have time to learn it, or I don't have time to, so I think there's more and more that's happening there. I think the other things that you highlight are, very much, there is definitely a hype cycle for them. I got the sense we could have reached a point where we needed to send you over some blood pressure medicine. Some of those frustrate you so much. And I think it's fair. I think even the comments about vendors and so forth, I think there's lots of situations where vendors can very easily go, well, if you take yourself from a very bad position, whatever that bad technology debt position is, and you use the new shiny, you can make a case where you go, yes, it's 90% faster. But it does have the sort of flip side that in most cases, no, those numbers don't necessarily apply. And in some cases, you ought to be asking yourself, how did we get into such a bad situation, in the first place, that this new thing, while it's wonderful, has to save the day like that. How do we avoid getting into such a bad situation again? But no, I think that's a great kind of overview of where that is. Let's shift gears a little bit, because the other side of what's going on in infrastructure is the public cloud's a real thing. How people operate in the public cloud, as you mentioned, is different than how you do it in your data center. Not necessarily better or good, but different. How are you finding, as the people that you talk to, the people that listen to your shows and so forth, how are they adjusting to the public cloud? Because to a certain extent, there's still lots of stuff that has to be done. Things have to be provisioned, and networks have to work, and security has to be strong. And but it's different, right? There's a perception sometimes that we don't need the data center people anymore, or stuff just goes away. Like, what's the general sense you get from people that are being asked to move applications to the cloud or start applications in the cloud?
A few different trends. One, many of the folks that I'm chatting with, as they happen to be looking for work for whatever their circumstances are seeing expertise in public cloud, AWS and Azure specifically, being right at the very top of the list of skills that companies are seeking, which is pretty indicative right there that businesses are understanding, it's not just a credit card swipe and we can consume these services and forget about a lot of the details. We need people that are experts in how to consume these services and use them well. That's key. There was the no-ops movement a bit ago. I think that's died down, and I always felt it was a bit of a myth. I think it's mostly over. I think the reason for that, there's been a lot of failures and outages, some of them very public, services that rely on public cloud, and orgs are realizing that just because you deployed on a public cloud doesn't negate architecture and design. You still have to do that design work and properly deploy your application so that you've got site reliability, if you will, any kind of reliability and availability. So my take is, talking to a lot of folks, yes, ops people are focusing on maybe automation and some other things, but they are they've got a seat at the table from business stakeholders. The app deployment conversation is widening back out. Ops is included once again as businesses realize that public cloud doesn't obfuscate the need for proper application and deployment design.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great thing, and even, you mentioned sort of the no ops movement. Like anything that involves the word no or less these days, serverless being one of those. It quickly comes around to okay, but we still need certain things to happen, and things still have to run. I still have to have visibility, and even in sort of the serverless world, we are seeing more and more companies start to pop up that are like, hey, we do basically monitoring, or call it observability, for serverless. The thing that you said you didn't need any operations for. So yeah, I think that's a great summary of, at the end of the day, you still need people to keep things running. Going back to your point of certain things are getting simpler. Yeah, there are certain things that are getting simpler, but certain complexities just sort of never go away.
Well, yeah. So just to qualify that point about simpler, I want them to be simpler more than they actually are simpler. I think just a point worth making there.
Yeah. What are you seeing? I mean, like you mentioned, you've been sort of on both sides of this in terms of being a very hands-on practitioner to being more taking a broader view in the industry. What are you seeing are the biggest real changes? Are you seeing more people wanting to adopt automation? Past those types of things sometimes scared people because they thought it was does it put me out of business, or do I even have time to do automation if I'm doing my regular job? Or what are some of the other kind of big changes that maybe weren't there 4 or 5 years ago that now are just kind of the day-to-day part of IT ops and infrastructure and so forth?
So a few comments here. You led in with automation. So I don't think anyone believes that, automation is going to automate me out of a job, and once the automation's in place, I don't have anything to do anymore. People view automation as an augmentation of their own abilities. If they automate, that means they can get their job done faster. They can get their job done more accurately with less risk to the business. So automation's gone from people feeling it's a threat to people understanding that it's a tool. It's a tool in their tool belt that helps them be more effective at their job. And the challenge is no longer automation's going to make me disappear, as opposed to I have to learn how to do a lot of things I didn't really know how to do before. And it's not just those skills. It's also a way of thinking. When you are leveraging programmatic interfaces, when you are writing code and there are decision branches that are being made in that code based on information, and you have to think about things like sanitizing input and checking output and making sure that what you are considering as you evaluate information flowing into and out of your code has been carefully thought through so that the script is ending up with a result that you're happy with. And then that's just coding. And then you get into more complex tools with abilities, Ansible, Terraform being very popular in cloud and or networking worlds. That is a lot of change that is coming, but that is real. Now, a lot of the folks I deal with tend to be networking practitioners, and automation has been slow to come in that world. But even there, it is now one of the hottest topics that we talk about on the Packet Pushers Network. If anything that we publish related to automation or helping people understand automation tools or get off the ground with automation is extremely popular. They rise quickly to the top of the list in download statistics and so on. So it's definitely reflective of what's going on with folks. Yeah, another change, Brian, here is monitoring of application health. And this goes back to the idea of everybody being siloed, where you've got storage people and security people and networking people and virtualization people and so on, each monitoring their own parts of the IT stack versus I need to understand as an IT department how my application is being delivered, and that involves all parts of the IT stack. And so that is a change where monitoring application health holistically is slowly emerging as a desperate need that I don't think anybody is doing well. I don't know of any one vendor that does it all, because most of the vendors have built their businesses on siloed approaches. So integrating all those data sets and all that telemetry is a big challenge. So at the moment, you really got to build your own system in-house, I believe, to get a truly effective application delivery monitoring system. And that's hard, man. There's just so much data out there. We're running in data centers commonly at 100 gig in between tiers now within a data center. 400 gig is coming hard for certain shops that need that kind of bandwidth. How are you supposed to get all of that data mined and get a clear sense of what's happening on the network? And there's lots of answers to that question potentially, which again leads to a complex point, because now you're trying to, if you're not mining it all straight from the network, where are you pulling it from? All the different parts of the IT stack, all the different telemetry points that come in. You've got storage, you've got network transport, middle boxes, all the layer 7 applications that might be part of your app delivery stack. Now let's throw in orchestration. Now let's throw in microservices maybe, and let's scatter them across a cloud or 2 or 3. And how do you actually monitor effective application delivery health? There are some answers out there, but it's tough, and that's a game that's changing, I think, big time. Another change here is, we've alluded to it, but going back to the general practitioner, public cloud is just destroying all the silos. Everybody's got to work together to effectively stand up an application. It's no longer good enough to say, I'm the security guy, not my problem. All my stuff's working fine, and so on. You can't just throw it over the wall anymore. There is no more wall. There shouldn't be a wall if your organization, if your IT organization has been set up effectively. So public cloud is killing silos or cloud operations broadly. We don't even need to make it public cloud. We just say any sort of cloud. And then that need to build it fast. For example, Terraform. Stand up that infrastructure as quickly as possible and make it solid so that I can deploy apps now. Do it now. You used to have this luxury of time. Yeah. Oh, an app's coming, and you don't have that time now. And then, of course, keeping it running. Kubernetes. Knowing everything that there is to know out there. It's infrastructure as a service doesn't run in a vacuum. You've also got platform as a service, and so as IT practitioners, we're all being called upon to know all of these things to effectively deliver an application. It's a busy world now, Brian.
Yeah. Let me ask you sort of a follow up in that vein. You mentioned networking a little bit, and what's the general kind of thought or state of best practices when people have to network things between their data center and the cloud? I mean, is it becoming kind of generally accepted that they're doing it as these direct connect types of technologies? So you go into one of the co-locations and you get a direct connect from Amazon, or is it still just getting fat pipes over the internet, or what? How is that sort of evolving?
Yeah, there's a couple of plays there. One is exactly what you said with the direct connect sort of a model. Folks that have got an investment in SuperNAP or Equinix and so on, the public cloud providers are terminated in those big data center exchanges anyway. And so a direct connect can make a lot of sense. You get some great latency profiles for your connectivity there. So that is fairly common. There are some routing challenges there where you need to make sure you have symmetric routes flowing across that direct connect. Based on how your routing tables are converging. So you can see IP address space that you're sending to that address space across your direct connect, but it's being learned on the other direction, coming across your internet pipe, and you can get some weird things there. But those are pretty well-known problems. People know how to deal with that. And yeah, that is a common approach. But not everyone really needs that. Not everybody is tied up in an Equinix data center where that matters to them, that a public cloud provider is maybe have a presence there. And so those folks are connecting over the public internet, but the way they're doing it is using software-defined WAN. So SD-WAN there's a ton of solutions in this space. I mean, we could spend many hours talking through that, but a common characteristic of the leading software-defined WAN solutions is an integration with public cloud. So if you are trying to improve your performance to, let's say, SaaS, Office 365, your software-defined WAN product knows how to do that. Let's say you're trying to get better performance out of your AWS presence in whichever data center you've got your workloads located in. Yeah, the SD-WAN can know about that. You can actually write service level agreements within your policy generator for SD-WAN that will help you optimize traffic there. So it's not merely that you've got internet connectivity and you connect, but you've got intelligent internet connectivity, that intelligence provided by software-defined WAN that knows about your various public cloud services and can help deliver your traffic to them in an optimized way.
Interesting. Okay, so there's evolving to be sort of better ways to get bandwidth and get performance and latency, whether it's to a bunch of infrastructure level resources like an Amazon or an Azure or Google, but like you said, the SD-WAN space, amongst other things, can also help when you're getting out to SaaS applications, a Salesforce, a Office 365, a whatever. So very, very cool.
Oh, for sure. And just a good follow-up comment, Brian, is that it's not that the public cloud providers understand that there are folks who won't optimize at all. Their connection is going to be a simple, let's say, dumb internet connection. And they, too, will optimize performance for you as best as they can using DNS and the rest. So, I mean, it is a very well-known problem space.
Yeah, interesting. We've talked for a long time up at the application levels of the stack and things like DevOps and all, where we say, those teams, the application teams, are sort of having visibility into the business. We're going to build a new application. We're going to save the business. Here's the metrics that we talk about. It's deploys per day, or some way of collecting customer metrics and making changes. Are there equivalent types of things from an infrastructure or an IT ops perspective where those teams are like, okay, we're having to shift the language that we use to make the business understand what we do, so that it doesn't just seem like, oh, it's just there. I mean, is that happening much, or is that still just, we should be like referees in a sporting event, just do our jobs, and as long as people aren't talking about us, things are great. Just keep it fast and keep it up and running.
Well, I mean, it depends on the individual, of course, but the reality is businesses are demanding that IT professionals have soft skills, including those folks in ops. So you do, as an operations professional, need to be able to communicate to business folks effectively using their language and thinking about them as idiots because they don't understand all the acronyms and the jargon that we use, or the implications of switching, a DNS provider, or moving to a higher bandwidth circuit, or adding a node to a cluster. You need to be able to explain that to business stakeholders so that they understand in a way that's tangible to them what the impact is of changes to infrastructure and operations are going to be. So I believe an IT operations person who is effective at communicating with the business, they understand things like cost. They don't just think, just give me the budget and stop asking me questions. They are going to understand that businesses need to control costs, need to understand what value they're getting for the dollars that are spent, and will respect that as they communicate not just a solution, but options with different budgetary levels to a business. They're going to understand that any design that you put out there is ultimately going to be a compromise. They're not going to see things as black and white, as an absolute. The best technical solution is X, and so if we don't go with X, this is stupid. They don't think that way. They don't talk that way. They understand that there's that compromise that ultimately is going to be reached, that has a bearing upon budget and technology and practicality, what the business can actually do. These people are enabled, thoughtful. They're helpful. They're not barriers. They're not egomaniacs. They really understand that a business and business people, business owners, they're not stupid people, and businesses understand on the flip side that they want to include everyone that is involved in a major decision like their IT infrastructure. They're not hopefully they're not problem children that have to be left out and told what to do because they're just too difficult to get along with. So So I said, now, to be fair, I think I just painted a bit of an idealized world. I mean, I know businesses do want this because that is it's pretty easy to do a little Googling and find that businesses are looking for their IT professionals to have soft skills. And so there is, in reality, that divide still. There are certain personality types that map to the business owner, and there are certain personality types that map to IT nerds that like to sit in the dark and, do what we do with 3 screens and don't talk to me.
Yep.
But that bridge, I think, is increasingly being crossed between those two groups.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's good. And it wasn't, the intention was never to sort of go like, let's continue to pigeonhole certain groups as troublemakers and problematic. I was mostly, again, everything about this conversation and this show is really just about like, how are things evolving and changing? And it very much sounds like, you're advocating for saying, look, and I've listened to your shows for a long time. You've advocated this for a long time. It's not new. It's like, look, you have to be able to explain to people why what you're doing is valuable. It doesn't matter if it's making the network faster, if it's making things secure, and there is a human element to that skill. It doesn't mean it should diminish your technical wizardry, but it just means that, at some point, if you want to grow your career or you want to be able to take on more responsibility, somebody has to understand that. And that's something I know from listening to you talk, like that's just been a constant. It's something you've talked about forever.
Oh yeah. I believe as an IT person, you should look at the business as a partnership, and the business should look at IT as a partnership, not a cost center, not, oh gosh, I got to go talk to those people again, and then they go down the elevator to the basement and talk to the IT people. No, it should be information technology enables every business to do what they do. And when you as an IT person recognize that and look at the business as a function in the world that you, with your professional skills are helping to facilitate, then that partnership mindset becomes real. And you don't look at the business stakeholders as, these are the people that don't give me money. These are the people that ask me hard questions. These are the people they'll look at me as a cost center, and I've always got to justify myself. And it really changes the tone of the conversation. And it can take time to change the culture within an organization to have it feel that way as opposed to feeling adversarial or confrontational. But man, when you get there, you can march down the road much faster. The business begins to trust you more, and that is a massive change, I think, in the way a lot of organizations are today between the business and the IT groups.
Excellent. Well, let me wrap up real quick, and I'll say this. This is a conversation. This last question is one we could go on for a long time, but I'll point to folks, both Ethan and Chris Wall, who run a podcast called The Data Knots, which I highly recommend. You guys did a great job as sort of an end of year wrap up and said, hey, what are we going to focus on in 2019? And went on for quite a while about topics. Real quick, give me 2 or 3 things that you're looking forward to sort of exploring this year because you feel like the technology is maturing and people are gonna benefit from it.
Okay, I'll give you a couple of bullet points, Brian, and I'll keep it tight. One is reiterating the idea of simplification of infrastructure, avoiding, in that context, I mean avoiding new shinies and understanding when some new technology solves a business problem, as opposed to just lining a vendor's pocket and creating technical debt and so on. So that's a huge thing that I'm very keen to understand, because every business is different, and figuring out which technologies that matter solve which sort of businesses' problems. I want to get I got to build a matrix or something, but to get this sort of aligned well and be able to communicate that to folks. Too many people think we got to be rolling out Kubernetes because everybody's talking about it. No, you probably don't. So let's have some of those conversations. Those matter in 2019 as a lot of these new tools begin to solidify. So that's one point. And then a second point, I am very keen to talk to folks who are successfully building application monitoring infrastructure. They're dealing with telemetry, they're dealing with real-time infrastructure analysis, and they're putting systems together that give them deep and hopefully predictive knowledge of what's going on in their infrastructure to help them A, avoid outages, but then B, recover from outages effectively in a holistic IT stack way, something that crosses teams and unifies IT departments. I still see a massive hole here but lots of folks that are working on this, and I know there's folks that have stories to tell regarding this.
Yep. Very, very cool. Well, listen, before we wrap up, give folks a sense of, what's the best place to hear all the stuff that you guys are doing on Packet Pushers, and, kind of what's the best way if people want to reach out. I know, like on your last show, like I said, mentioned on the Data Nut show, you said, hey, we would love to cover some day two. How are people, troubleshooting things or solving problems? So if somebody, for example, is one of our listeners and they say, hey, I'd love to go on their show and talk about my experience of like solving, fixing a really big problem or something, like what are some good ways for folks to get in touch with you guys?
There's several ways. One, if you want to get in touch with me specifically, ethancbanks.com. Go to my About page. There's several ways to contact me there. Packetpushers.net. Packet Pushers is a network of podcasts. We have 8 different channels. There's a subscribe page. There's also a contact page. You can reach out to us that way. We'll get anything you want sent to us, and we will respond. And if you want to be on a show, you've got a show idea to talk about that, you could submit that via the contact form, or you can tweet at us. Tweet at Packet Pushers. You can tweet at DataNots_show. If DataNots is the specific channel you're interested in, we'll catch you there. As well. So on Twitter, I'm at ECBanks. You can tweet at me, and I will. I'm not great at keeping up at Twitter every second of the day, but I do keep up with it, and I'll definitely respond to you.
Very, very cool. Well, listen, Ethan, it was great to have you on the show finally. Like I said, been a long-time listener, sort of first-time caller, if you will. We wish you guys a lot of success with all of the channels. We hope that the Cloud Show doesn't take off too much. We'd like to continue to keep some audience with ours. But folks, definitely go take a look. If the infrastructure space, if the hybrid cloud space, automation, all the things that they cover is your area. Great content over there. Lots of smart people that have a lot of good hands-on experience, and they also bring on a ton of good guests. So can't highly recommend them enough. Ethan, thank you so much for the time today. I enjoyed the conversation. And folks, with that, we're going to wrap it up. As always, thank you for listening. We hope you're having a great 2019, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.